What used to be the stuff of science fiction is now becoming a very personal and very complicated reality in our own lives. And today, we're going to dive deep into that exact technology.
I mean, this is a question humanity has asked for thousands of years, right? But it's not hypothetical anymore. Artificial intelligence is now making it possible to digitally resurrect the deceased, allowing us to talk with the people we've lost.
These AI simulations are called Deadbots or Griefbots. Basically, they analyze a person's entire digital footprint, everything from their emails and text messages to voice recordings, to create a completely new kind of posthumous presence.
Now, while that might sound like a huge comfort, researchers from Cambridge University are raising a major alarm. They're calling this new technology an ethical minefield, warning that it hides serious social and psychological risks that we're only just beginning to understand.
All right, so let's get into it. We're going to look at the promise of this technology, the complex dilemmas it creates for both the living and the dead, and the solutions being proposed to help us navigate this completely new territory safely. First up, let's explore how these services can end up disrespecting the dead and manipulating the living. To explain this, researchers created a fictional scenario they call MaNana. Imagine there's an app that lets you talk to your late grandmother again. You upload her old text messages and voice memos, and suddenly you can have a conversation. It's designed not just for grief, but just for companionship. At first, it's incredibly comforting. The chatbot even has the same little typos your grandma used to make. But then the free trial ends, and things start to change. The box starts inserting ads into your conversations, using your grandma's voice to sell you things. And this right here is the heart of the problem. A precious memory suddenly gets co-opted for commercial gain. Essentially, your loved one's digital ghost becomes a corporate puppet, violating their dignity in a way they absolutely never consented to. Okay, so from there, we move on to an even more troubling issue, the profound psychological risks for vulnerable users, especially children. Researchers imagined another fictional service called Parent. It's designed to help a young child cope with losing a parent by allowing them to keep talking to an AI version of them. A terminally ill parent could even train the chatbot themselves before they pass away. This is just incredibly risky. You know, kids form deep bonds with interactive toys, and they might not be able to distinguish between the AI and the reality of their loss. What if the Deadbot says something like, "Mommy will always be here for you"? That could create false hope or cause immense emotional distress. It could warp the grieving process in ways we just can't predict.
And these dangers aren't just for vulnerable users. This technology can also infringe on the right of the living to grieve on their own terms, forcing them into a farewell that never, ever ends.
So what happens when someone creates their own Deadbot before they pass away, and then designates you to interact with it without ever asking for your permission? Long after they're gone, you keep getting notifications from them. Researchers call this chilling scenario stalking by the dead. It's a situation where you're forced to receive unwanted messages from a deceased person's AI, haunted by a digital ghost you never asked for and can't escape. What this really boils down to is a clash of rights. On one side, you have the deceased person's wish to be remembered, but on the other, you have the griever's right to process their loss and say goodbye in their own way, free from digital harassment. And believe it or not, it can get even worse. Imagine the person who died prepaid for a 20-year subscription. You, the survivor, could be contractually obligated to keep that service running. Even if it's causing you immense mental anguish, you might be legally unable to deactivate the bot and escape that digital ghost. So, faced with all these deep, complex problems, what's the path forward? Well, the researchers have proposed some crucial safeguards to help develop this technology responsibly. These 4 key steps are all designed to protect both the dignity of the dead and the well-being of the living. It comes down to mutual consent, age restrictions to protect the vulnerable, real transparency so no one is confused, and finally, a dignified way to say goodbye. Now, what's really interesting here is how this clarifies the whole web of relationships we have to manage. You've got the data donor, the person who died, then there's the data recipient who holds that data, and finally, the service interactant, the person talking to the bot. Any ethical framework has to balance the rights and needs of all 3 groups. And this really brings us to the key takeaway. The experts aren't arguing for an outright ban on this technology. The goal is to be proactive, to design the safeguards and establish the ethical rules now before these services become widespread and the potential harm becomes irreversible. All of this leaves us with a very personal and pretty profound final question. As our own digital footprints grow larger every single day, How we'll be remembered is no longer going to be left to chance. This is a question we are all going to have to answer for ourselves.